Who's ready to party? Welcome to another episode of the RadCast, the only podcast that ever has or ever will exist. I'm, of course, your host, the ultimate radass, Jet Dade, and I got an episode for you tonight. Coming up on tonight's RadCast, we start off, of course, with Call It in the Back. Followed by that, we're going to take a look at Korean barbecue. Is it rad or is it ass? After that, we've got a special guest, Professor Steven Stossensteimer, who's going to take us inside the science of professional wrestling. More RadCast after the break. Welcome back to the RadCast, and welcome to a segment I like to call It in the Back, where a fan calls in and asks me my opinion about just any old thing, and I try to answer their question or give my opinion to the best of my abilities. Today we've got William Glass from London. Willie, what you got for me today?
Hello, Mr. Jet Dade. This is William Glass from London, Arkansas. And I'm finally calling in. I've waited a long time for this.
All right.
I just recently got into camping, and I need some advice. And I know you're an avid camper. I think from your podcast, I gather that you're an avid camper.
No.
When you go camping, what are the 3 things you make sure to pack in your camping bag? Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, you're dead wrong. Certainly not an avid camper. Do I like the outdoors? Sure. I enjoy it. Am I an avid camper? No. Am I a frontiersman? No. Am I skilled in the art of bushcraft? No. But back against the wall, gotta pick 3 items. I think I'm going carbon stick. Carbon stick? I don't know if that's what it's called. I've watched the show Alone. They always have this little fire starter stick. It's like a carbohydrate, something. So I would have to Google what that is, and then once I knew what it was, I would buy one and I would bring it with me, because that's how they start fires very easily. And of course, you can't go camping without a fire. Now, some might say a tent is necessary, but I do think that I've seen enough survival shows to know that I could build a pretty sturdy lean-to with just a couple of branches and some palm fronds. So I don't think I need a tent. What I would take, depending on where I'm camping, some bug spray. Okay? The swamps of Florida, you're not gonna last outside for very long without a gallon or 2 of off. So fire stick, bug spray, smoked sausages. Okay? You wake up, maybe it was raining. I've stayed perfectly dry, of course, because I've put together a watertight structure. What do I want? A breakfast. Nice breakfast. I've got the smoke from the fire. I need something smoky. Okay? A nice link sausage. Maybe find a few eggs, wild eggs, robin's eggs, perhaps. Voila. That's breakfast. So, in conclusion, fire stick, bug spray, link sausage. There you go. More RadCast right after the break. Welcome back to the RadCast and to a segment called Rad or Ass. Now, this is a segment where I ask your opinion on if something's great or awful, hence Rad or Ass. If you'd like to get involved with Rad or Ass, go ahead and follow at the Jet Dade on Instagram. Now, this week we are discussing the Korean style of barbecue, or as it's more famously known, Korean barbecue. Now, I asked what you all think out there on the internet, and you said Korean barbecue is rad. Long story short, I totally agree, wholeheartedly. Okay, it is rad. But don't just take my word for it. I've got an expert here. Kim Yurim from Incheon, South Korea is going to tell you all about Korean barbecue.
외국인 친구들에게 한국 음식을 소개해 줄 때 저는 코리안 바베큐를 가장 우선적으로 추천해요. 가장 대중적이면서도 불호가 없어요. 그리고 여러 가지 종류, 삼겹살뿐만 아니라 갈비, 소고기, 곱창 여러 가지 종류가 있어서 누구든지 언제든지 쉽게 그리고 가볍게 그리고 그렇게 즐겁게 먹을 수 있는 것 같아요.
And there you have it, from the expert herself. Korean barbecue, rad.
이 험한 현실에서 아직 붙잡아두고 싶은 꿈 넘고 힘든 삶은 능선 내서 때론 포기하고 싶은 꿈 너와 천천히 오래 걷고.
Hello, I am Professor Steven Stassensteimer, here to teach you the science of professional wrestling. We've all seen the moves intended to inflict pain or bodily damage to an opponent. I'm going to break down how these maneuvers work and why they hurt. Sleeper hold. The classic maneuver capable of bringing any opponent to a state of unconsciousness, no matter the potential size difference of the fighters in question. It is a technique that every wrestler should have in their arsenal, but how does it work? There's a secret to the sleeper hold and how it renders an opponent unconscious. A little inside baseball, if you will. When applying the hold, the positioning of the arms is crucial. Because chokeholds are still illegal in most wrestling leagues, many wrestlers will try to make sure they're not applying pressure to their opponent's throat, thereby allowing free passage of oxygen. The secret here is that the sleeper hold is really a blood choke. The pressure applied from the bicep and forearms of the attacker to the carotid arteries on both sides of the neck effectively cuts off blood flow to the brain, depriving it of oxygen. Most wrestling leagues either have no direct barring of blood chokes, or it is a gray area at best. Some athletes have perfected the sleeper hold, utilizing a few key details. Many wrestlers will be sure to keep their bodies firmly pressed against their opponent in order to put them to sleep more quickly. This creates a false sense of security, harkening back to the feelings of comfort and warmth of being nuzzled by their parents as a toddler. This is often combined with a grip of the forehead to prevent tossing and turning, sometimes varied into a head and arm lock to simulate the position comfortable to many side sleepers. Now the piece de resistance. Highly observant viewers may notice at times the attacker seeming to speak to his opponent, perhaps mocking or gloating. No, this is actually a clever tactic whereby the attacker is whispering soothing phrases or classical lullabies in order to coax his opponent into relaxation and acceptance of the slumber that calls to them. I have been Professor Steven Stassensteimer on the science of professional wrestling.
She blinded me with science.
She blinded me with science.
Found it in geometry. When she's dancing next to me.
Welcome back to the RadCast, and you know, I try to learn something new every day. And when I say that, I don't mean I look up a random fact on Wikipedia or Google something. No, I'm not picking up a textbook every single day, okay? I think we learn most things without proactively seeking them out. And even on a day where it seems like you didn't learn anything, you know, take a moment, reflect on that day. Dig a little deeper, you know? Because learning something doesn't just mean picking up a new tidbit of information. Maybe you learned something about yourself, about others, about the way the world works. Maybe you learned a life lesson, okay? If you did nothing at all that day, maybe you learned that it doesn't feel good to do nothing all day. Conversely, maybe you learned that it's actually good to take a day off. The writer Isaac Asimov is attributed as saying, the day you stop learning is the day you start decaying. Now think about that. Muscles atrophy when they're not used, right? They begin to slowly deteriorate. A car that sits in a garage for a long period of time will start to fall into disrepair. Dust collects around the house when it's not cleaned. Another great thinker, Major Chip Hazard, once said, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste." Realistically, if you're watching this, you've got the internet. Now, the internet is pretty much an index of every bit of knowledge ever accrued over the entire span of recorded history of mankind, really. What I'm trying to say is you've got options, all right? But if you don't, like I said, just observe your actions throughout a day. You might notice, hey, why do I always feel bad after my morning cereal, you know? And then you realize, oh, I'm lactose intolerant. You might wonder why someone didn't respond to 10 messages that you sent them in a row consecutively in a short span of time. And then you realize, oh, it's kind of annoying to receive 10 messages in a row while you're busy with something. And people need boundaries. Anyway, if you haven't learned anything today, including from tonight's episode of the RadCast, how about this? There was a sequel written to the book 101 Dalmatians. In that book, everything on the planet, except for dogs, has fallen into a deep sleep. And the dogs could fly. And also one cat is still awake because it's kind of a honorary dog for some reason. And in the end of this book, they find out that it was Sirius, the dog star, who was lonely. And so he put everything else to sleep, and he asks all the dogs in the world to come join him. Spoiler alert, the dogs say no. More RadCast after the break. Thank you for listening to this episode of the RadCast. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions about this episode or the RadCast in general, hit me up on Twitter and or Instagram at Jet Dade. I love hearing from you guys, and please hit the subscribe button to this YouTube channel to make sure you never miss an episode of the RadCast. I have been your host, the ultimate radass, Jet Dade, signing off.